Welcome to the Perth Entrepreneur Podcast with me, Neil Gibb, where each week we use the stories and journeys of other successful business owners to motivate, inspire, and empower you to become the next breed of successful entrepreneurs. This week we have Andrew Ford from Ford and Doonan, which is one of the largest air conditioning companies in Western Australia, and at its peak was turning over more than $60 million per year. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I think everybody knows Ford and Doonan Air, don't they? Everybody must know them.
I hope so. We spend enough on marketing.
Probably one of the biggest air conditioning businesses in Western Australia.
Yeah, we are the biggest, yes.
Yeah, excellent. So how did it all start? How give us a big overview of it now, the size of the business.
Yeah, so it started when I was 19. I just finished my apprenticeship working for the government as a refrigeration mechanic and service technician. Kyle Doonan came along in the final year of my apprenticeship as the new tradesman. And it's mandatory that apprentices at the hospitals leave as soon as they finish their term, make space for the next apprentice. And that's halfway through that last year of my term, we concocted an ill-conceived plan of starting our own business. So naive, knew nothing what we're in for. But leap of faith, we jumped into it. And then we slowly grew, learning fast when you're burning your own money, as they say.
So if you were so naive, why did you come up with the idea to form a business? Was there work there to do working for somebody else?
Yeah, we knew that we could get a lot of subcontract work, which is great. There's always work around, but being a very seasonal business made it especially hard because there was always work in summer. But come the first winter, there certainly wasn't enough to keep two of us going. So Kyle actually left the business, went and got a wages job again. I stayed in, hung in, and then come the second summer, Kyle came back to the business, and then from that point on, we could keep it going with the two of us. So why did we get into it? I suppose both our parents were in business, but not really entrepreneurs. Kyle's dad was a bank manager, so he was clued up in that space. My dad was a pharmacist. But I said neither were entrepreneurs as such, in my opinion, but we were always exposed to business, which from a young age.
Right. So currently now, what does Ford and Doonan look like? Because I know I've seen stores scattered around the place. Can you give us a quick overview of where we're at now?
Yep, so we've got 2 company stores, and then we've got 9 franchise stores, 3 in the southwest, and the rest in the metro area. So for a total of 11 stores.
Wow. So from coming out of your apprenticeship to setting up a business to what it is now, how many staff have you got?
So we've got 50 direct staff at the 2 company stores and about the same again through the franchise network.
Holy moly, that's insane.
Yeah.
So are you a Perth boy?
Born in Sydney, but I call myself a Perth boy, Neil. Yeah, I came across when I was a baby. So
even with my accent, I still call myself a Perth man nowadays. So
why not?
It's a great place, isn't it?
Sure is.
It's a great place. So yourself and Kyle set the business up. How long was it before you realised that there was a solid business there and you needed to start relying on other tradesmen and other people to help you build a business?
It's a great feeling, isn't it, when that does happen? It was probably year 3 we hired our first employee, which was a mature age apprentice. His name was Peter. And Peter came to us because he had so much experience, although he was an apprentice. Before being an apprentice, he was in contracting, air conditioning, mechanical services. So he brought a lot of skills set and systems to our business, which made a big difference in helping us grow and just get our act together.
Yeah.
So it was pretty quickly we were off the tools ourselves. Well, I want to say that was a gradual thing, but it felt quite quick. And we quickly realised we were best utilised in sales side of things. And that's when the business took a big shift from being a service-only business to a more focused on sales and installations. Although service has always been an integral part.
Right. So Peter brought in some of the systems and processes that you still use today.
Funnily enough, yes, there's an Excel sheet that we do all our costing on that he actually developed, and that was like 32 years ago or something. Obviously, it's morphed a lot since then, but yeah, it's fundamentally a core same product.
Yeah, brilliant. So when you're going through, I know for myself, when we've gone through this transition where we've needed to bring staff in, how do you make sure that the numbers work, that you can bring somebody in and make money from them while still being able to be out there yourself and make money off your own back too?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a very hard decision sometimes, that critical moment. I think you've got to have the faith and the ability to let go yourself, because I think this is what holds a lot of people back in business. because I think the stats, 96% of businesses have four, 5 or less employees in Australia. So that's by far the majority. So many reasons why that might be, but one of them is that control, being able to let go and let someone else do it who may not do it to the same exact standard as you, but you need to be able to accept that. It needs to be good, but not perfect.
Yeah.
So the ability to be able to do that, I think, is a major step. And so you can then, by doing that, you can then focus on what you need to do to make the whole thing viable economically.
Yeah, and I suppose having the right systems and processes in place definitely helps when you bring somebody else in.
Absolutely. You need the core ones. But what we found, I look back in those early days, Neil, and systems that we developed, like at one stage we were doubling our revenues every year. So a system that worked one year suddenly doesn't work the next year, and you've got to re-evolve it, and it's just a never-ending process.
Yeah, I can imagine. So with the systems and processes, for anybody that's listening that doesn't understand what a system or a process is, can you give us a sort of brief overview of what they are and why we have them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that should be in every part of your business, from safety to, and like, for example, let's pick a couple of examples. One, on our main reception at head office, there's a receptionist book. So if we had to get a temp in, for example, if the normal receptionist was sick, there's an operator manual where she knows where everything goes, where it's saved, where it's filed. You answer the phone this way. So we try to systemize everything. You may be familiar with the book, The E-Myth.
Yep.
It's a classic book, and everyone in business should read it if they want growth. And that's very much about procedurising everything, and that's what we tried to do. But as I said, the procedures get outdated so quickly in any rapidly growing business, and that's a challenge, is then go back and to keep them updated.
Yeah, that's what we're finding too. We've got the core process that we follow for the things that we do within our business, but I'm finding that I'm forever going back and changing them, and in my mind I'm thinking, why am I doing this if we've already got the system? Why does it not work? Why does it continue to grow? But
it's so frustrating, isn't it?
Isn't it just,
and then we got to do is leave it too long, and then suddenly too many things are out of date, and it becomes such a daunting task to go back.
So do you physically print your systems out so everyone's got a document for their role at the business?
Basically, yeah, and especially going back to recruitment, onboarding them, we have a very clear job description and scope of what their job is, so there's no sort of ambiguity on what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and that saves a lot of potential arguments or disagreements and that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. So just on recruitment there, what's your process for recruiting people?
It's
because
hard, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
It's really hard, and especially with the skill shortage that we suffer in our trade, like especially service technicians. We can put an advert in and get either a handful of people who you've seen before who tend to go around the industry, but the chance of a quality person even applying for the job is remote. Same with sales, like you get the same sales guys moving around the industry, but they're not always the best ones. So that's probably one of the biggest things that holds us back even today, is we just can't place an ad and get a good choice of applicants to be able to grow the business with.
So what are the top 3 attributes you look for in a new employee?
I'd say attitude. And I think everyone preaches the same thing. You can teach the skill, but you can't teach the attitude. So, yeah, hire for EQ, not IQ necessarily. And they've got to be a fit for the culture of the company too. They might be brilliant at one company before because their culture was different to yours, but they may not be a fit. But, of course, it's very hard to tell this in an interview. We've all done interviews and been dazzled by the person and then disappointed pretty soon after that. So I've got no silver bullet on this one, Neil, but and always do background checks. We touched on before going live was on social media. We use that as a great tool. Tip to young people, watch what you post, because employers will be going back and checking your feed. So it's a powerful tool, that one, and probably the most realistic one.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
And do reference checks, because we read great references, but they're not always bona fide. So take the time just to spend 10, 15 minutes ringing up some of those referees or previous employers. And the question I always ask them, which I think is probably a key one, is, would you hire Joe Bloggs again? And just wait, don't say any more. And if there's a hesitation, it almost says enough.
Let the silence do the talking.
Yep.
So with that recruitment process there, when you touched on people come through and they're just a completely different person, I really believe there's people out there and their job title should be professional interviewee, because they just know what to say and when to say it. But then when you bring them into the business, they're just a completely different person. So
frustrating that. And we've had some ones that have dazzled us, interviewed, and continued on to be that great person. I mean, we put an advert in for a salesperson about 5-6 years ago, and someone applied from Melbourne. And I thought, great, some fresh blood interstate, and he had a great experience in the industry. I sort of said, oh, yeah, look, we'll probably get back to you in a couple of days, and we'll probably, try to do a Skype interview or something. He was that keen. He jumped in the plane. This is a Thursday or something. By Friday night, he was in Perth and at my office Saturday morning.
Perfect.
I thought, well, that shows a lot of dedication, and he's still with us now, and he's been great. So
brilliant.
You do get some gold come through.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. So when did it get to the point that have you opened other stores? So you've got 2 main offices and then multiple other offices underneath that, or is it
That's
the
right,
franchise?
Yeah. So we originally started with 3 company stores and then the rest franchises, and we sold one of those and converted it to a franchise from the manager who was actually running it for us. So at the moment, currently, we've got 2 company stores and 9 franchise stores.
9 franchises. So how does the franchise model work? Because I've heard about it. We all know about the McDonald's and the Hungry Jacks. But yeah, for an air conditioning business to franchise, how does that work?
Yeah, I think there's only 2 franchised air conditioning businesses in Australia, so many have tried and been unsuccessful. So I think, like anything, it comes down to the people, and the key is that franchisee. And I think too many people, when they're franchising, have got the growth aspirations, and they're just accelerating them at the cost of getting the right people, and then get the wrong person can do so much damage to your brand. We were fortunate, and this is really the reason why we started franchising, is that we'd lost 1 or 2 good senior people who wanted to go and do their own business in air conditioning. So they'd seen what we were doing, we sort of taught them what they needed to know, and wanted to work for themselves, wanted that flexibility, more money, and they left and become competitors to us. And this wasn't good, and we're having rumblings of other managers saying the same thing. I thought this is going to be disastrous for our business. So I thought, what is a way of harnessing both our wants? And this is the franchise model where it works so well for us, because they're now working for themselves. They can work as hard or as little as they want, make as much money as they want, but we're all on the same team, and we haven't lost that person to a competitor. And the IP that we've built into them is still retained. So it's just been a win. So probably out of those 9 franchise stores, probably 6 of them used to work for us prior to them going out on their own. And also the culture that we develop goes out into that franchise store.
Through. Yeah, nice. So in my mind, I'm seeing it's looking like a Christmas tree. It's got you at the top and then all these other stores underneath it. Is that sort of how it works?
Basically,
and so they purchase the name from you. They set up the office to get access to all your systems and processes. Is the ongoing training from you that goes through all the franchisees?
Yes. Yep. So especially the new ones that are part of the onboarding. We did a couple of experiments which tested our procedures manual, was where people who weren't from the industry, like they were from not even allied industries, and we had to teach them how to be an air conditioning company owner, and that from scratch is quite hard. So that really tested our systems and ourselves. We spent a lot of time with them, but we got there in the end. So yeah.
And did they have air conditioning experience, or did they just come in?
Just came in. One was from the real estate industry, and one was from a meat industry. He was like an operations manager at a Harvey Beef, I think it was. So yeah, who would have thought that? And they've both turned into excellent franchisees.
And were you nervous when somebody like that approaches you to link into the business?
Yeah, we are, and I think we were more comfortable because they were country. That if it didn't go as to plan, that the damage wouldn't be as big to us, but them not being in the city in Perth. So that was probably gave us a bit more confidence, but as it turned out, we didn't need to worry. But they're a big burden for that first month or two, and they're ringing you all the time, and I was that point of contact for them, which gets tiring, but it passes.
Yeah. And I suppose with the franchise model again, is there a way that, I mean, are you looking for more franchisees? Are you still looking to expand? Because I know the business is huge at the minute, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We always want to expand. To me, unless you're growing, you're going, which has been tough the last few years to say that. But look, in the metro area of Perth, we've got enough franchises. We've got one earmarked for Yanchep, if and when the time's right, when that really pushes up that way with the subdivisions. But for the foreseeable future, in the next sort of 1 to 5 years, we don't see we need any more, because it's very easy to cannibalise each other then, and you start to get an unsustainable market share that you start turning on each other. In the country, we haven't got anything up north. I still don't know why. Clearly, we haven't spent enough energy on that.
That's because you're south of the river. Isn't it?
No, I mean like northwest, like Karratha and everything.
Right.
Yeah, like obviously it's hot up there, and why we haven't got an air conditioning one up there, but we don't. So that's probably the single area we'd definitely like to move into.
Yeah. Nice. So you mentioned earlier the building boom had a big effect on the business itself, and it was attributed to a lot of the growth. Like how fast did it grow?
Yeah, it was good times, because what happened in our industry was luckily we caught it early and saw what was going to happen and predicted it, was that the builders were suddenly starting to option ducted air conditioning in with the build. This is back 2010, 2011. One or two builders were starting to include it, or for a subsidised fee as a marketing promotion. We thought, wow, if this takes off, it's going to take out all the clients that we normally would do after they build. They settle into the home, get a pool, get an aircon 1 or 2 years after they've moved in. With the builders doing it all, which is how it turned out is now, that all that market would be gone. So we knew we had to get a big chunk of it. And that meant really looking at our costings, because we were just too expensive in the market for the builders to be able to use us. So we had to go back to our whole supply chain and look at where we can get better savings on materials. So we actually went to China and started importing static products, and not air conditioning units. We still buy local Japanese-made units, but we bought static items like air conditioning grills and sheet metal products, and that allowed us to lower our cost of sale so we could be competitive in that space. And we just then went out and got as many as we could. Fortuitously then 12, 13, the boom started happening with the mining, which then dragged into the home construction, and we grew 50% from about 12, 13 through to 15, 16. It was this crazy time.
Wow, that's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah,
and how big were you at the start of that boom? Can you remember how many employees you had?
No, I know we finished at 110 employees, almost double what we've got now. And we had like 35 wages installers at one point because we couldn't get subcontractors because there was such a shortage. Now we're down to 6 wages installers, and then we use subcontractors again because the model changes for the economic conditions.
Are you seeing that as a way of the world currently? Because I know a lot of people use contractors because it gives them the flexibility for when there's no work there. Is that
correct?
Basically
exactly
why
right.
you do it? Yeah.
Yep, especially with that seasonality we touched on earlier.
Yeah. So are we allowed to talk revenue? Can we talk about how big Ford and Doonan is in the way of turnover?
Yep, consolidated revenue of the group hit 60 million.
60 million this year?
No, that was in the peak of the boom.
In the boom.
And it's come back a bit, probably 20% or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're still talking...
40, in the 40s, yeah.
Nice work.
And that was an interesting thing too, Neil, was looking at how quickly we could scale back when the housing industry, for people who don't know, halved the number of new homes being built. So it wasn't just a slight downturn, it was a massive downturn. So, and as I say, a falling tide takes all ships. So we couldn't do anything but fall down because there wasn't any builders building enough new homes. So what was interesting to look at was then the smallest franchise stores with maybe 4 or 5 staff versus us, how quickly they could unravel overheads versus how slow we were to do it. And we were probably too slow, but a bigger beast takes a lot more effort to slow it down, a bit like a ship turning in the night.
And I suppose you probably had a lot more full-time staff there instead of contractors, which makes it harder to...
Correct. We were caught with unfair dismissal and that sort of thing. You got to pay redundant. We were aware of it. We didn't get caught by it, I should say. But you can't just sort of say, sorry, guys, it's not enough work, because once you're over 15 employees, you get caught by a different set of rules. So we had to sort of... some people took redundancies. Some people, we didn't renew contracts if they were on contracts. And it takes a while for that to go, because you also don't want to create a reputation for yourself of being ruthless and just cut people.
Yeah.
Then when you need to hire again in the booms, you're going to have that tainted reputation. So it's very political as well.
It's such a hard path to follow, isn't it? It's just so hard. Like you say, you need to be Mr. Nice Guy but Mr. Ruthless at the same time, so that the numbers, at the end of the day, running a business is about the numbers, isn't it?
All about the numbers, yeah. And we try to be quite relatively transparent with that with our team. So we've got a leadership team of our sort of senior managers. We're talking about the company store now. But then we've got what we call a leadership group too, which is the sort of people below them. But we create a meeting every 3 months where they came in and we shared these sort of more confidential information with them, so they could then filter it down to their team below them. So we're sort of trying to create, again, that pyramid of information. So it's not just we know it all, they don't know anything, and they get worried by that.
So I suppose the franchise model is the better the people are underneath you, the better it is for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been interesting to see the different personality traits of the franchisees. Some are so hungry for it, will go out and create it even in a sort of downturn time and grow their business. Others are in retraction mode, and it's each their own. You can't make someone change the way they are. It's just the way they are.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's just amazing to see the amount of turnover you're doing now, mate. So well done.
Yeah, no, thank you very
brilliant.
much. Yeah, it's exciting.
What we did touch on earlier, before the interview started, we touched on real estate. Obviously, I'm very, very passionate about my real estate. And
yes.
So can you give us a quick...
Sure, yeah. I've personally never been a fan of residential in property investment, just because it doesn't get the yields, except for your model, Neil, which you shared a little bit about before we started. So I've always been focusing on commercial real estate, and I got involved with a property syndicate group. And since then, currently I've got about 7 different shopping centres. These are commercial shopping centres, quite from strip ones through to quite large ones, and they syndicate it. So it's a unit trust, and you hold units in that trust. So if that person's syndicator should something happen to them, it doesn't necessarily mean you've lost your money because you've got still a unit on the title.
Right. So you're not the syndicate owner or runner, you just buy into the syndicates.
Correct.
To get a better return on your money than what you're getting in the bank.
That's right. Yeah. They manage the whole thing and deposit you return in every month. So money just comes in your account every month.
Yeah.
And typically, at the moment we're looking at sort of 7 to 9% yields.
Nice.
Net. So it's good return plus a capital gain. They generally have a 7-year lifespan, the syndicate. So at year 7, the syndicate then gets wound up, the property is put on the market, and then there's hopefully a capital gain as well as the upshot of the yields along the way. But should the market not be right for a sale, and if only a majority of the unit holders agree, then the property will be retained until the market improves.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah. Do you ever keep them? Because if it's kicking out 7% every month.
That's right.
Then why would you sell it?
Exactly. And as they say, the smartest way to make money is to use someone else's money. And I did that because I had created a lot of equity in my own home and then borrowed against that. So I was using the bank's money, paying them 4.5% and yielding 8%, using other people's money.
Right.
So it's a beautiful model.
And did investing... How did you come across investing in property? Was it just something, because Australians love property, don't they?
We do love property.
They love property. So was it always in the back of your mind that you wanted to invest in property, or was this something that you were introduced to?
My parents have always been into property, so that's one lesson they did teach me, and they quickly learnt that commercial was more for them than residential. So I've always known about their property portfolio, and they tend to do it themselves, where they self-manage with a property manager commercial, where the syndicates now invest. Dad's still invests in similar syndicates to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, cool. So 7% returns, it's not bad.
Yeah, and that's sort of like a minimum that they'll take these syndicators. They'll even look at a property.
Yeah, cool. So I know investing in real estate does take a certain mindset as well. A lot of people go out there and just buy a developer end-of-line stock and the negative gear it to offset tax, which is what's been kind of pushed into everybody for as long as I've been in the country, and I've been here 10 years now. What sort of mindset do you think is required to invest in property, and like what sort of attributes do you need to be going out there and actually physically looking for a better return on your money?
Yeah, I agree. I've never been a fan of the negative gearing because obviously you're losing money, and that's a nice way of putting it, is negative gearing. Sure, you get the tax benefit, but unless the market's going up, then negative gearing is a pointless exercise. It's just losing money. So that's and certainly market in Perth hasn't been going up for a very long time, and let's hope we're finally starting to see it rise in the next few years. So if you get your timing right and it's about to boom, and you had 3 or 4 negative geared properties and it goes up, great, but choosing that timing is near on impossible. Well, I can't do it. The other way I think in real estate, residential real estate, you can make money is if you do the refurbishments yourself and the makeovers and, drive that value back in. And someone once said to me, in real estate, generally speaking, you make money when you buy the property, not when you sell it, meaning that it's all about buying correctly.
Buy it cheap.
Yep.
Manufacture the growth on the property and then sell that equity gain that you've pushed in there through renovation, development, subdivision.
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant.
And always look for a property of some sort of upswing, just like what you said, where you can do a granny flat or do another property on the back side of it or something like that. So always look for property that's got some sort of sizzling sausage.
Right. So what does a normal day in the life look like for Andrew Ford nowadays? Have you got a sort of daily routine that you follow? You're in good. You look like you're in good shape. So
I've got the gym. I'd like to stay in shape. I go to the gym every day. I'm a late afternoon trainer is my thing for training. Some people love morning. I'm the afternoon. So a routine. I spend probably half the week in my home office now because Ford and Doonan is obviously my core business. But I've also got the gym, and I've also got an entrepreneur training sort of role and podcast myself. So I'm very diverse, and I'm always looking at other opportunities. My mind never rests.
Yeah.
And I consider myself a hard worker. I'll often go back at 9 o'clock at night and just do another couple of hours if I've got a special project on. It's the only time you get. So I try to work efficiently, but you always know you could work more efficiently.
If we can always do everything better, that's the curse of being an entrepreneur, isn't it?
It is. And bright, shiny things. That's the other curse of an entrepreneur is we're never satisfied. That, oh, great, I've got my business running smoothly. It's making me a good income. Let's sit back now. We entrepreneurs tend to go, that's great. Now what's next?
Yeah.
And that's very much me. And I suspect you, Neil.
And sometimes we can do that too early as well, can't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I made a lot of errors in that regard. I think I've got the new project or the new business channels started and I've got all the marketing set up, it's ready to go and I'll pass it off, but I'm passing it off too early or I'm passing it off to someone who's already busy with their core job. And then suddenly I expect them to be able to generate a new business channel. And so I've learned a lot of lessons over the years too. I make a lot of mistakes like we all do.
And we never stop learning, do we?
Never stop learning. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So the gym, tell us a bit more about the gym that you've got, Excess Fitness.
Excess Fitness in South Perth there, virtually on Canning Highway. Yes, I was a member. I would never normally invest in a gym, Neil. Then most of them aren't that good an investment. But this one I was a member of for 3 years prior to it coming on the market. And I looked at it 1 year and I'd sort of lined up some partners and I'd done a really extensive business plan and things just didn't line up and it didn't happen. And I knew if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. I do believe in that. So I just dropped it again. Almost 12 months later, he'd tried, other deals had fallen over with the previous owner and I came back into it and this time it did all line up. So, it's just exciting. I call it my hobby business because I do love the gym and that whole fitness space, and it's not work to me if we've got to go out and buy a new piece of equipment. It's a bit of fun, where I don't get the same value buying an air conditioner anymore. Maybe I used to, but so it's a whole new area and it's completely, I don't work in the business at all. I work on the business from home on the management side of it. So I made sure I structured it so it didn't revolve around me at all day to day. So we've got 2 co-managers at job share through the week. Got a membership manager, my girlfriend partner, who runs that from remotely from her home, and we've got a bookkeeper. And really, the thing ticks along really pretty well trouble free.
Fully systemized, just runs itself. Everybody knows what they need to do.
And that's a really good point you touched on there. Is that what I did do is procedurised the whole business and wrote the whole manual with staff's help and got all that going. But then I realised after I'd finished it all that I'd probably dropped a bigger business's systems onto really too small a business didn't need it.
Yeah.
So I was over-functioning sort of thing. But being the entrepreneur, I thought, okay, when I bought this, if I can get this marketing and the business singing and I've got the right ingredients and the right things, I could then look to either franchise it or acquire other sites and convert them or open more company gyms. But I knew I had to have the base right for that, which is systems and procedures. So I knew I wasn't just doing them for this particular site. I was potentially doing them for multiple sites. So I had to do the work sooner or later. But right now I've probably over-systemised it and over-complicated it, what it should be a simple little business, but it's ready to grow if and when that day happens.
Well, I go to that gym and everybody knows they look like they know what they're doing. So it looks like your systems and processes are working.
Yeah, I like to think so anyway, but even the best systems don't always work.
So would you look at buying more gyms? Is that something on your radar? Is it?
Probably not right now. We've just spent the last 12, it was March last year we've got it, so it's coming out, 10 months or something? And it's been a world of change down there. I've made so many improvements. Those days finishing now, so basically everything's done, so it's starting to take the burden off me. But until I get it just right and I've got the marketing just right where I know I could replicate it, I'd say no, but I also aren't discounting it. Probably a year before I'd look at it.
Yeah. Excellent, mate. Excellent. So can you talk to us about mentoring coaching? Because I know you've got obviously the entrepreneurial mindset, and I know that you also help other entrepreneurs with starting and scaling businesses.
Yep.
Can you give us some background on that?
Sure. So really it's a semi-retirement plan because I know I'll never be a retiree that just sits at home or goes on a caravan trip. Bless them, those who do. But I know I'm going to have some interest, and this is really why I started this now, because I've got very little time to spend on this training. So I haven't really been pushing it much, but we did start the podcast because one of the core things I do, so many people have helped me, Neil, over my journey of 35 years in business for nothing, just because they wanted to help. And I want to give that back too. So it's not just about monetizing it. It's about just helping people. And I'm big on that because so many people help me, and that's how life is, I think.
Yeah. So with the entrepreneurs that come to you, what sort of businesses do they have?
Okay, classic example is what we just brought a new contractor in to do the CCTV and access control in the gym. And I knew this guy had the X factor. You meet someone, this young bloke in his late 20s. And I thought, this guy has something.
He's got the twinkle in his eye.
He's got his act together. Everything he's doing is good. So I just mentioned that, this is my thing. And if you ever wanted to catch up, because I was actually looking at how I could onboard him into my world somehow, as truth be known. But anyway, even it was actually only last Saturday, we spent 3 hours on Saturday afternoon just whiteboarding a strategy session, SWOT analysis of their business and where because I've got so many great opportunities. So now I'm suddenly caught up in that world of theirs, although I've got to be so mindful of the time I can spend on it.
Yeah. And I suppose that guy probably, I'm not sure whether he does know how lucky he is just yet, but someone like yourself tapping him on the shoulder and saying, mate, I like what you do and I want to help you increase it further. I mean, that doesn't happen to everybody, does it?
No, it doesn't. And yeah, I think I always do send them the link to the website, which has all my sort of credentials, I guess you'd say, and awards we've won over the years. So I'd thank you for the compliment, and hopefully I can make a difference, because there's so many things in business that you've just come across that you've either made the mistake in or you made the right choice, that you can just steer people around potential problems that you didn't see yourself and hopefully save them tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So the coaches and mentors are critical for growth and success.
They are, yeah. And I think I never wanted to call myself a business coach, because a coach to me is slightly different to what I do. I'm sort of more of a mentor or a CEO, because it's a very lonely place being a business owner, especially as the business gets bigger and if you're the sole owner of it, there's no one you can really confide in, even your wife or a partner. Often they don't understand or don't want to understand, and there's just no one. You can't share it even with your senior management, because you might be talking stuff that they perceive as negative, and they'll go, oh geez, is the business in trouble or something like that, which wasn't the intent. So it can be a very lonely place, and often you can just, CEOs need someone to bounce ideas off. I'm thinking this, what do you reckon? And you're not there to say yes, no. You say, that's a good idea, but have you considered this as well? And they let them make their own decision, of course.
Yeah.
So it's just can be a lonely place.
It's always good having somebody not so much looking over your shoulder, but just looking at what you are doing through a different set of eyes, isn't it?
Yes.
And that when they pick up on them small things that can make the massive changes.
Yeah, because let's face it, we've all got blinkers on, haven't we? You see the world through your own eyes, as you said, and often you can't see the obvious just because you've got these blinkers on you. You're almost committed to path A, where path B might be the better one.
Yeah. So what about mentors in your life? Have you had any that have helped you get to where you are?
Definitely. None sort of that have been pivotal in, like I say, this person made all the difference, but so many made a little bit of difference and always were willing to give up their time. So my one tip I'd give is always go and ask people, could you give me some advice on X subject? And they're not necessarily wanting any payment for it. In fact, they probably don't, but be respectful of their time. Don't sit there and dribble rubbish to them. And just be humble and just ask, and people are more than willing to help. So
just in there, sharp, to the point. I'm having a problem with this. Have you had any experience with it? Can you give me any tips and pointers?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
And another famous saying, Neil, you probably would have heard, is your network is your net worth. Especially in a city like Perth, where it's relatively small and everyone needs to know everyone, 1 degree or 2 degrees separation. That is so critical for success in business, is to surround yourself with your network of people who can help you, open doors for you, and it's all reciprocating, of course, as vice versa. When they need help, you're quick to help them.
Exactly. And that's one of the main reasons that I set this podcast up. It was mainly to help myself expand my network, and then I thought, well, instead of just meeting successful people and getting this information from them, why not record the conversation, make it into a podcast, and everybody can benefit from it?
Brilliant idea.
And it's hopefully that with the information that you've given us today, that somebody gets, even if they just get that one little thing, that makes all the difference for them and gives them that little boost of confidence or motivation that they need to go out there and do what they want to do, follow the passion and turn it into their profession.
Absolutely. And a lot of, I think we also get caught up in why no one else seems to be having these problems. Why do I always have these problems? But really everyone's having the problems.
Yeah.
They're just not displaying them. And I also say that if your business isn't in some organised chaos, that you're probably too comfortable and something's not right.
You're not pushing hard enough.
Not pushing hard enough, or something negative is going to happen, because when a fast-growing business should never be sort of stagnant and everything settled and great, unless you've got a different business to mine. But yeah, we've always been in organised chaos, and that shows we're making money and we're growing.
Just constantly driving for growth. Andy, thanks very much, mate. So before we go, what's your top 3 books you can recommend?
Well, I'm not a big book reader, but I'm a big podcast consumer, actually.
All right, top 3 podcasts.
Oh, geez. There's one out of America called The Jordan Harbinger Show. He has some really interesting guests from all walks of life and business. I've also been and still are a member of Entrepreneurs Organisation, or EO as we call it, which is a global group. They've got their own podcast called EO 360. Some great interviews on that. And you're pinning me for a third one. And there's a futurist, a Perth-based futurist, Gerhard Pereira, and he's got a podcast too on preparing ourselves for the future and what the future may look like, and some great little learnings in there too.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And where's your best place to eat in Perth?
Not a massive restaurant. Anywhere that's acoustically good. I hate noisy restaurants. I prefer average food and a beautiful ambience and silence than a great food, but you can't hear yourself speak over the table.
Yeah. What about that little restaurant in South Perth that's got the queue out the door every time you drive past it? You know,
Miss Chow's?
It's just packed every time I go past it. There's just a queue of people outside.
Yeah, that's one just opened up on Main Street. Is that the one you refer?
No, the one near the bookstore.
Oh, right. Oh, Chow's or something. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in there, but that is an amazing place.
They're doing it right. So I might have to try and get them on the podcast, find out what's going on.
They should franchise. Actually, I do have a favourite restaurant, Miss Chow's, but it's just opened up down the road from me in South Perth, Main Street.
Yeah, it's nice down there.
Very nice.
Been there a few times. Excellent. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And join us next week for our next guest. And remember, every master was once a disaster and every winner was once a beginner.